So in this module, I want to make sure that selling on Amazon actually is for you. Because the last thing I'd want you to do is spend the next 60 to 70 hours going through the Freedom Ticket and then realizing, hey, this is not for me. I want to do something else. So I just want to give you a few key pointers about what to think and the mindset you need to have going into being an Amazon seller. First, like we talked about earlier, this is not a field of dreams. It's not a build it and they will come. It's, despite what you may see on a bunch of Facebook groups and out there, it's not a passive income. It's far from it. It's not something that you can just throw up a product and go sit on the beach in Cancun and drink Coronas for the rest of your life and just watch the cash register ring. Does that happen? I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. There were occasions where someone wins the lottery. That did happen a little bit more back in 2014, 2015, years ago, when this business model really started evolving. But in today's world, it doesn't happen. This is real work. It's a real business. So you really need to have an entrepreneurial mindset. You need to be able to adapt and pivot quickly. And that's how you beat the big brands. That's why if you go and look on Amazon for some of the top keywords, you don't see the big brands listed there. You actually see these unknown people. Sometimes it's a strange sounding brand. Sometimes it's someone like you and I created that's on page one that's kicking the tails of a lot of these other big national brands that you see on TV. It's because they can adapt quickly and they can outmarket them, they can outmaneuver them. They're not big corporations moving with permission from 20 different people. They can act really fast. So execution is critical. I see so many people that do a bunch of courses and then they never launch a product because they're just afraid to pull that trigger. You've got to be able to be willing to take a risk. You may not make it on your first product. So if you got $20,000 to start this business, don't throw that all on your first product. Unless you have experience doing e-commerce in the past, I would recommend you start with a much less than that and save some of that money for your second or third product and get your feet wet. Maybe go back to the last module and do one of those other business ideas of the merch or the arbitrage to build up some extra capital or to get a little bit of idea of how the system works. But be willing to execute. A lot of people get stuck on choosing a product. We're going to give you some criteria and some things to look at later on of how to pick a product. And a lot of people, they get stuck and they just don't move past that because they're just afraid. Is this the right product? Is this going to change my life or not? And you just got to move. You got to look at the data and just move. So if you're not willing to take that action, this is not for you. You got to be willing to take that action. You're also going to need a little bit of money. You don't have to have a lot of money to start this. We're going to talk about in another module, how much money do you really need? I know that you're asking me right now, how much money do I need to get going? You could start with a few $100. You could start with a couple $100,000 or more. But the type of product you choose and the way you approach it is different depending on how much you're starting with. And the lower you start, the less likely you are to make this a full-time income quickly. The more money you start with, the higher likelihood you can make this a full-time income quickly. So we're going to show you a spreadsheet later on in one of the other modules where we talk about if your goal is to make, let's say, $50,000 a year, that's what you need to pay your bills and pay your rent and take care of your family, this is where you need to be on Amazon. We're going to walk you through a little hypothetical spreadsheet that will show you exactly where you need to be, how much you need to sell, how many products, and at what price. We're going to give you a really good idea of what your goal and target should be. But you're going to need a little bit of money to get going. Now, you don't want to quit your job just yet. A lot of people, unless you've got a big savings account already and you can live off of that, a lot of people are looking to get away from the man. They're like, I want to quit my job next month. I'm going to start selling on Amazon. Don't expect to do that. A lot of people continue working their job for the next 6 months to a year, sometimes longer, until they really get their Amazon business going. They do this, moonlight this. They do this on the weekends and at nights and get it building until it's at a point where they can quit their job. So don't be expecting to quit your job really, really quick because the money that you're making on Amazon, most likely you're going to have to constantly reinvest it. And if you're making enough money that it looks like you can take money out for yourself, that means you're probably growing and probably need to keep throwing more money into the business rather than taking it out. A lot of people that operate this business, I know guys that do $7 million a year and they only take $70,000 a year out as their salary. And their whole goal is to grow the business so that they can then sell it for millions of dollars rather than taking a bunch of money out now. They're kicking that can down the road to take a bigger payday later. Also, you don't need to be everything to everybody. This is not a business where you can be everything to everybody. You're going to have people that don't like you. You're going to have people that are going to try to imitate you or try to copy you. or especially if you're successful or you're ranking very well, there's going to be people that try to knock you off. There's ways to deal with those, and we'll talk about that. But if those kinds of things bother you, this business may not be for you. If you can't take rejection, this business may not be for you. You're going to have some really stupid customers sometimes that write some really stupid things that just aren't true. Or they're going to ask you questions, you're like, oh my God, this person, do they even have a brain? And you got to be able to control that, and you got to be able to answer them in a way that's not defensive or not angry. I've made that mistake in the past years ago with some of my other businesses where some customer would write something in and say something crazy, and I would be like, what? You stupid moron, did you not read what I just said? Did you not look at the freaking picture? But you can't answer them that way. You got to hold them by the hand like they were a child. And so if you don't have that temperament or someone on your team that does, this may not be for you. You've got to be able to deal with setbacks and adversity. Selling on Amazon can be awesome. It can be really great. You could be rocking, and then all of a sudden one day you wake up and the whole bottom has fallen out. And you're like, oh my God, overnight $10,000 a day just went out the window. What do I do? You got to be able to adapt and figure things out. You got to be able to problem solve. Sometimes it's something a customer did. Sometimes it's something you did and didn't realize you were doing it. You did it, it's against the rules of Amazon. Sometimes it's the algorithm changes. Sometimes it's the market condition changes or a competitor comes in. Like I said, I've had a business that's me and my partners lost over $1 million selling on Amazon. And a lot of that was because of the Amazon algorithm. This company was doing $40,000 a day in sales. And then all of a sudden Amazon made some algorithm changes. We had some stupid customers that said some things. And we had a few other issues that took it down to a couple $100 a day in sales. And now it's closed. The whole business is closed. And we lost about $400,000 on our balance sheet, on our profit and loss. And then we had to donate about $800,000 worth of inventory to charities. So it felt good to donate that inventory, but it doesn't feel good when that comes out of your pocket when you were hoping to do better. But does that change my philosophy or what I think about selling on? No. I still have multiple other companies that are doing well, and I'm launching another one as well because the opportunity is so good. So you got to be able to deal with these kind of setbacks and adversity and expect it. It's business. You've also got to be able to have access to additional money. You'll hear stories about people that say, I started with $500 and now I have a $10 million company. That's not the whole story. Someone that started with $500 and now has a $10 million company, they had some help along the way. They had access to money. They had a rich uncle that they tapped out, or they have a credit card line, or they mortgaged their house, or maybe they have a supplier that they were able to work out some very good terms to let the supplier let them pay 90 days or 120 days later. There's more to the story. So you've got to have access. If you're going to grow this big, you need to have access to some additional money. If you don't have that, that doesn't mean you can't start, but you just need to understand that this is not going to turn into a huge business if you don't have access to other money. It's going to actually be more of a side hustle and maybe give you some extra money to take a nice vacation, or it depends on where you are. If you're in some countries in the world, an extra $500 or $1,000 a month could be life-changing. But for someone in the U.S., an extra $500 or $1,000 a month is probably not going to support them. So it depends on your situation, but access to money is critical. As you go, there are companies, even Helium 10 has something called Alta, and they'll talk about that later. Once you get to a certain point and you prove yourself, you may be eligible to get up to $1 million perhaps in funding that will help you grow your business. So there's tools and systems in place, not just the normal banks or your rich uncle, but you're going to have access to that. And that means keeping your account squeaky clean, doing things right, so that when these companies evaluate you, you're a good candidate for those funds. Another thing is you need the ability to delegate. In the beginning, you're going to be wearing a lot of different hats. You're going to be the guy talking to the suppliers. You're going to be the guy or woman talking to the marketing people. You're going to be the one talking to the listing. You're going to be wearing a bunch of hats. You're setting up the advertising. But as you grow, you're going to need to let go of some of those things and just focus on what you want to do, what you're best at, or what you want to do most, ideally what you're best at. And then delegate a lot of these things. One of the ways that I run all my companies is I partner smart. You can hire VAs, what's called virtual assistants. There's a whole module on that later that will help you do a lot of these kinds of things. You can hire actual people to come into your office or work from their home for you. It just depends on your situation. But delegating is going to be something important, or partnering with other people. Now, I don't have a lot of employees in my companies because I delegate and I use companies to do different things. I hire out. I don't have a graphics person full time. Rather, instead I go to, we'll talk about this later, but sites like Upwork or Fiverr or 99 Designs to actually get my designers, and I'll find someone I like, and then I just hire them on an as-needed basis, so I don't have a full-time employee. And I do that with a lot of other things too. And so that ability is very important. So these are just some of the things I want you to keep in mind as you're going into this. These are things that you're going to need to have the right mindset and the right temperament to actually have a good chance of success in this business. One of the other things that's out there too is if no matter where you live in the world, if you're able to travel and come to conventions, there's a lot of Amazon conventions in this space. Probably the Prosper Show is one of the biggest ones. It's usually held in Las Vegas once a year. There's several other smaller ones all over the world in different countries, 100, 200 sellers. The Prosper one's about 1,500 to 2,000 sellers. And come to these types of events and meet other people that are going through this same thing with you, or join the Facebook groups, or join the Freedom Ticket Extra or the Helium 10 Elite or some of those other things as the time comes, so that you have other people that are in the same boat as you that you can talk to. Because when you talk about this stuff to your family or your friends, they're going to look at you like, what the heck are you talking about? You're talking some other language. So having these kind of people is helpful. Plus the networks you can build and the doors it can open are amazing. So don't just sit behind your computer. Once you get going, get out there and meet other people. You may make some of the best friends of your life by doing that. That have similar interests to you and that can introduce you to a lot of other things and open a lot of doors. So with that in mind, I know you're ready, so let's go on to the next module.